All right, fantastic everyone. Thank you so much for joining us in these quite unprecedented kind of circumstances. My name's Tim Wilson. We've been chatting to a bunch of educators from all around the world, and I think everyone is essentially, scrambling for, materials and resources in these times to figure out how to negotiate the situation amongst all the obvious health and economic concerns as well. So hopefully today we can have a bit of a look through the programs and give you a bit of insight into how to get up and running quickly, and also give you some advice on kind of best practice and just ways to manage your students and get the most out of the programs. A bit of housekeeping really quickly. Most of you have probably used Zoom before and are familiar with the chat and Q&A questions, so please type any questions or thoughts you have in there. If we can't get to them during the webinar, we'll certainly get back to you at a later stage. My colleagues can also potentially get back to you whilst the webinar is in session. So if you have any kind of technical issues there, hopefully they can help you out there as well. All right, fantastic. Let's get into the webinar itself. So we will be covering a fair bit of ground today, and we do have training videos that cover all this content as well. So they will be available as a reference for you at a later time. So if we're flying through something and you don't get a chance to properly absorb it, then you will be able to do that at a later stage. Additionally, we will be recording the webinar as well, so you better reference that at a later stage. Let me just close my chat window here. Okay, so there the kind of items we're going to look at here, many of you are probably already kind of at this kind of stage. We will kind of spend a bit of time just looking at getting set up, and a brief look at the content in the programs as well, just so that you're familiar with how they work and just the best way of getting your students into the programs and managing them. So apologies if all of you, if some of you are already kind of past that point. Okay, so I'm just having a quick look at the messages here. So it appears that most people are all good with the audio, but yes, please let us know if you have any issues. Okay, so as far as getting set up, at this stage, most of you should already have received your login details for the programs and also download links. So as teachers and administrators, it's important that you use the downloaded installed apps for the programs. These give you access to all the administration features and allow you to control the content that your students are receiving. If you've had any issues with that, you can go to this URL. For all cloud support, this is your primary resource. You can download the programs. You can, excuse me, you can also contact technical support. You can also reset your password and login details. So students can also use this link. So that is your primary kind of reference there. So once you're up and running, you've got the apps downloaded and installed. If you do need to add additional instructors, then please let us know, and we can simply add them in from our end. Now, as far as getting students into the programs, there are a couple of methods. Probably the quickest and the most effective is via your LMS. So with this system, we essentially have a quick chat to your LMS admin people and just set up the integration. That's a very quick and easy process. And then essentially your students can log into your school, university LMS and then automatically launch the programs from there. There are some other distinct advantages in using that system. Obviously, you don't have to enter your students into the software in any other kind of way. The second thing is that basically all your tasks that you create with your LMS can then be linked directly to worksheets and tests in Auralia, with all the results flowing directly back to your gradebook. So if you have any questions regarding that, would like us to have a chat to your LMS admin people, just get in touch, drop us a message here or at info@risingsoftware.com, and I'll be reposting some of this information a little bit later. The second method for getting your students into the software is via importing students, and this is done under the People section in Auralia and Musition. And you can do this from any kind of CSV file, which can be saved out of Excel and any kind of spreadsheet program, essentially. I'll just show you really quickly where this is done and the quick process. So in either Auralia or Musition, under People here, this is essentially where all your classes and students will live. And I can add my classes simply by clicking on plus here and give my class a name. So let's just call these by some pretend course codes. Use 101, 201. And then to add my students or import them in bulk, I can simply import students here. Given a little bit of information here just in regard to the CSV file, I can also download the sample here, which is a template essentially that I can fill out with all the required information to make the import successful. I've seen a few messages fly by about the import process. And again, if you have any issues, you can just email through your import template CSV file to us. We can have a look at it, check that it's okay, and if need be, import it for you. But that process is quite simple, and hopefully most of the information you need is there. And again, we do have a training video for that, which I will send about once the webinar is complete. Okay. Now, I do want to make just a quick distinction as to how the cloud edition works and how students and instructors can access it. So this cloud edition gives you access via two different methods. So one is to use the installed apps. So these work on Windows and Mac computers. The apps have all, as I mentioned before, all the key instructor administration features. And they also have the full features, topic list, and content of the programs. So instructors and students can install the apps to access the programs to get access to those full features, the full feature set there. Students also have the option of accessing the programs via the browser through any of your standard browsers there. And I guess the main advantage there is they can access most of the content and topics on any kind of device, whether it be phone, tablet, laptop, or a computer as well. And yes, so I guess the experience there for students is a little bit more integrated as well. I'll just show you the browser interface just so you can see what that looks like. So I'm just in Firefox here on my Mac. You can see here, I've got Auralia topics and content right there, and musician topics and content right there as well. So it's a bit more of an integrated experience for students. Also, any tasks that are assigned to students are also combined here. So you can see I have worksheets and tests that include both Auralia tasks and Musition tasks. Okay, and as I mentioned before, students can use either or both of these methods to access your service, but you as instructors, administrators should be using the installed apps to administer all of your tasks and content. Okay, just jumping into the content side of things, just for anyone who's not super clear on it, Auralia is our dedicated ear training tool, and the primary stimulus is almost always something is played first, and then the student responds in various ways. Versus Musition, where which covers all our theory and fundamentals content, where something is almost always visually presented first, and the student responds in that way. All right, let's jump into a couple of the topics just so you can see the sort of content that is available. Even if you use the programs with students just using this main practice mode, there are lots and lots of content here that they can access and lots of value that they can get out of using the programs. So I just don't want you to feel as though using the programs has to be a huge blocker and a huge learning curve for you as far as having to develop your own custom content and get things, set up exactly the way you need it. Obviously, this will be a focus for many of you, but yes, I did just want to point out that there is lots of super valuable content in there that once students have an account, they can easily just go straight into practice and jump into any of the available topics. Let me just check my audio settings here to make sure. Hopefully everyone can hear that. Okay, so just to give you a really quick idea of the basic workflow across Auralia Musition, in this practice area, students can jump in. They can go into something like interval recognition. If need be, they can take a lesson and play back various examples, work their way through all the materials, and there's lots in here across all the topics for students to explore. From there, they can jump into any one of the levels that we've provided here, and essentially all the topics start off, with a zero knowledge base, and basically expand the content from there. So you can see interval recognition starts off whole steps and half steps and jumps up from there. So if we go into, say, level 5. Okay, so I can answer in a number of ways. Let me just check if anyone has any questions. If anyone, can someone just give me a thumbs up just to let me know that you're able to hear my my audio there? That would be fantastic. As in the playback from the intervals. I'll just replay it again now. Beautiful, thank you very much. Okay, so the student can respond in a number of ways here. So obviously multiple choice. I also have the option of answering via the on-screen keyboard. And we have a guitar controller as well, and also a solfege controller. So this can be switched between fixed do, movable do, and movable do la. There are options in the syllabus for that. So I guess most importantly for students, if they get something incorrect, and you can turn off those annoying sounds as well if you like. We won't try again. I can then compare my answer against the correct answer. So lots and lots of questions just like that, starting from absolute fundamentals and moving through to more advanced content. I will point out that if students are good at self-directing, they can also create themselves a little temporary custom level here. So in here, for example, I can say, great, as a student, I know I'm struggling with identifying the difference between natural minor, harmonic minor scales, and perhaps melodic minor scales, ascending. So I can create a little custom level that works that includes just that content. We won't get into it today, but as an instructor, you can also create your own saved custom levels and create your own entire curriculum under the syllabus feature of the program. So in here, for example, rather than your students receiving our complete syllabus, you might have a different syllabus. I'll just select the band one for now, that essentially has a different set of topics and levels that are all mapped more specifically to your curriculum. As I said, we won't have a chance to get to that today, but we do have training videos on all of that. Okay, so as far as other content, just to give you a quick idea, the main difference between Auralia and Musician here is, so whilst intervals in Auralia was all about oral identification, here in Musician, the intervals topic starts off with just identifying intervals by size. And then as I click through a few levels here, we start to talk more specifically about half steps and whole steps. And then getting into multiple choice question types. You'll find many of the topics include multiple question types as well. So things like this, multiple choice, then moving into things where the student has to submit their answer, clicking their answer on the stuff. So in Musician, you will find that when the feedback form appears for students, they can then orally reinforce the concept. Okay, we'll look at some of the more advanced content in a moment, but I just wanted to show you really quickly. There are a whole range of things in here that may be of interest depending on your student's level. Everything from rhythm tapping, where the student has to tap a displayed rhythm. And check that my audio here. So just using the spacebar, I tap the displayed rhythm. All right, so I obviously got a little bit creative there at times, especially at the start. So we won't try again, but we should get some really nice feedback showing where the rhythms were a bit astray. You can see exactly where I missed some of the beats, and even where I was assessed as being correct. You can see where I was, potentially a bit behind the beat as well. So as far as the content in the levels, again, it starts off at a super basic level. So in here, for example, level 1 is using just, and I've got this on UK rhythm terminology at the moment, uses just whole notes, half notes, and quarter notes. And then I won't embarrass myself trying to do the higher levels, but there are all sorts of goodies in here and tuplets and things that should extend your more advanced students. Okay, now let me just jump back to my PDF for a second. So there is lots and lots of content across both programs. We won't have time to explore too much more of it right now. Sorry, I'm not sure if I just had a question here from Elizabeth just in regard to the tapping questions. Yes, there is a metronome counting during that topic, so you will hear that. And yeah, you can choose to enable and disable many different features of most of the topics. I will talk a little bit about singing in a moment. I'll just send another couple of. And also just seen another question here really quickly, just in regard to the different question types that are available across most of the topics. So if you choose to create a custom level, you can control the exact question types that are delivered. So as we were looking at intervals before, when you create your own levels through the syllabus side of things, you'll be able to see in here that you can determine the types of questions that are delivered. So from what interval is this to clicking the interval to inversion. So you can enable or disable those options as you need to. Okay, Okay, so I'll talk really briefly about the singing. So there are lots of singing topics in the installed apps that students can use, everything from basically pitch imitation, where students have to sing back a played note, a played pitch, through to scale singing, interval singing, and also sight singing, which uses just whole notes. So when students first go into one of these topics, and this won't pop up for me right now because I've already done a bunch of questions in here, they'll be shown a dialogue similar to this. Now, this is really important for getting up and running with the singing topics. Essentially, in here, students select their input device, and they also can set their level. So getting the level right here is important. If my level is too high, then or too low, obviously that is going to cause issues. This little dialogue here also gives the student the opportunity to play with a few different topics and just get a bit more of a feel for how the software responds to their singing. The pitch assessment is actually very, very accurate. It can take a little bit of getting used to for students, but it is actually, yeah, super accurate. I'll try and demonstrate just one of the topics now. Again, I'm not a singer, so I apologize in advance for what I'm about to subject you to. And I'm not sure if Zoom will try and dominate my audio feed here as well, but we'll find out. Okay, so I'm given a tonic note. Ma, ma. All right, so I was a little bit flat on that. I'm just going to try it again. Ma, ma. All right, so I think Zoom is playing havoc with my input here. So I won't be able to demonstrate this in detail right now, but this is actually quite accurate. And when you have a play with it in the installed apps, I think you'll find it to be quite a useful practice tool for students. It obviously also means that they can, practice many different skills in the comfort of their home, which is obviously their only option right at the moment. But it certainly presents a lot more options in the ways that you can deliver that content. Okay, so all right, fantastic. I just had a message there saying some people are quite used to using the singing input now. All right, fantastic. Let's get on to some of the other core content that may be of interest in regard to dictation, which I'm sure is a huge one. Sorry, just one quick question in regard to the singing. So there are kind of different types of feedback in here. Essentially, the software will show you the pitches that you did sing, and it will also allow the student to play back their singing. So it gives students some really good immediate feedback as to what they sing as well. Oh, and someone's just commented, used to hearing students singing out of tune. No worries, I've done a good job there. All right, so as I mentioned, yes, let's jump into some of the dictation side of things here, which I'm sure is of interest to many of you. So in here, for example, we have everything from basic kind of pitch dictation, which has no rhythmic aspect. So it's using purely whole notes here. Okay, so the student again can enter their answer in a number of ways. There is an option here, if you enable it, for them to play back their answer. And then they can submit it like so. Lots of content in here like that. And as you work through the levels here, you'll see they go from quite short melodies to using limited scale degrees to a whole range of different keys and longer examples in both major and minor tonalities and so on. Now, a more traditional melodic dictation starts with some very basic content, again, largely using stepwise movement with limited scale degrees. I'll just jump into level 1 here. Okay, so once again, the student can input their answer. So, and then get some feedback. Obviously, if I do get something incorrect, I then get some nice feedback and I can play back my answer, both orally and visually compare it against the correct answer. So the early levels start off with very basic content like that, but then as we move up through the levels, many of the questions use real audio for playback. So if we get into some of the high levels here, we're starting to use real audio recordings here. And once again, I'll hit go on this, but just let me know if there are any issues with audio playback here. Student can come and pop in their answer, do much better than that. In the practice mode, I can play this back as many times as I need to. And then submit my answer. Like so, and once again, I can play that back and so on, as well as play back the correct answer using the audio. Okay. Then as we move into the higher levels again of melodic dictation, we start to introduce chromaticism, both ornamental and functional, and variations in texture as well. So here we're starting to introduce polyphonic and homophonic textures. Let's just have a quick listen to one of these. So again, I can pop my answer and so on. Excellent. So there's lots of content in there that you can use in any of your worksheets and in your own syllabus if you choose to. You also have the option of importing your own content, and I'll get to that briefly, and we'll have a quick look at that feature. You can also see here in the pitch and melody section for more advanced students or moving into post-tonal content, there's atonal melodic dictation. We also have two-part melodic dictation, which again starts off with very diatonic questions, and then moves into introducing chromaticism, and then moves into atonal excerpts and excerpts based on polytonal content, modal content, and a whole range of other things there that you and your students can access. Okay, I won't jump into any of the rhythm dictation exercises, but a lot of the functionality and content is shared with Musition, except obviously you'll just be responding on a single line percussion staff there. Okay, so let's have a quick look at chord progressions. So in here again, there's a bunch of content that your students can access. The levels are structured in a very kind of segmented way so that students can isolate and work on specific skills. Level 1 just starting off with chords 1 and 5 in major keys. 1 and 5 minor keys, slowly introducing the 4 chord, and so on. And I know many of you will probably introduce this content in different ways. So again, the software does allow for you to mix and match these levels in any way you choose in delivering your own content. Now, just to give you an example, let's jump into, that's a good level here. So let's have a quick look at level 19, just so you can see how this works here. Okay, so you can just input your answer using the chord palette here. I'll just randomly click in a few goodies. We'll pop a 571 at the end there, which I remember as a student, if I had any doubts, I'd go with that and just do as many tonic chords as possible and keep my fingers crossed. Okay, so not my finest work, but now I get some nice feedback. And you can see here, once again, I can see where things went astray and play back the answer as well. So lots and lots of content in here like that. Similarly, in Musician, if you go to the chord progressions topic here, it's all about visual recognition. So if we go to this similar level here, and the levels are mapped as closely as possible across the programs, we're dealing with the same harmonic vocabulary. And in this case, rather than having to orally identify the progression, it's a harmonic analysis exercise. And then, of course, I can play it back to orally reinforce what's going on there. Okay, so the programs contain, thousands and thousands of questions across all these various topics. For students doing chromatic harmony, that's also covered under the advanced progressions topic. So in here, we start off dealing just with applied chords, applied dominance, and then start to introduce a whole range of other things, getting into mixed chords, augmented sixth chords, Neapolitans, and so on. So lots in here along those lines. Let me just give you a quick example of what that looks like. Okay, so again, I'll submit my answer here. And basically anything that any kind of content you don't currently see in the programs, you can add in some shape or form as well. So we'll get to that in a moment as well. Okay, now I want to make sure we have time to explore the tests and worksheets feature and some of the other things. Just before we do that, we'll have a quick look at the library. So just so you're aware, in this part of the program, which is only visible to instructors, this is where you can look at all sorts of media and questions that are in the program. And these are fixed, high quality questions that you use in many cases, real audio recordings, images, and notation files. So in here on the left are all our media files, and there are literally thousands and thousands of them. Along with, on the right, you can see any matching questions here. And you can see that the beauty of the system in here is that you can essentially draw upon any any variety of questions that relate to the media. So for example, for this particular excerpt, we have everything from a multiple choice articulation question, which looks like this, through to cadence questions, through to questions, chord recognition questions. And so on like that. So in here, as I mentioned, there are thousands and thousands of questions. So we could similarly use that same excerpt for a dictation question, whether it be harmonic, melodic, or rhythmic. But yes, essentially in here, there are thousands of questions that you can draw upon and assign to your own worksheets or to your own syllabus if need be. The search function is really powerful. So if you had specific curriculum needs, you wanted something, so you want some harmonic dictation questions that include applied chords, you can simply enter those search terms and then jump in here and you'll be able to find any related questions here. So you can see media on the left, you can preview a question on the right. So let's have a quick look at just one of these shorter ones here. So let's just pop in an answer there, just so we can try the question out to see if it fits our curriculum needs. If we decide that question is fantastic for us, then it's really easy to I'm just going to double click on that question to open it. And then I'm just going to add a tag so I can find this. So if I decide this would be fantastic for my Muse 101 course, I'm just going to add a custom tag there so I can search for that later, and I'll show you that in a moment. So as I said, there are literally thousands and thousands of questions and media types in here. You also have the option of importing your own media. So under this section here, import files, you can import audio files, images. If you have existing content that you've created in, say, Sibelius or Finale, you can import that from this section as well as music XML. We don't support everything that those notation programs do. Otherwise, we would also be a notation program. But essentially, if you have existing materials, getting them into the programs is really quite simple. And then once they're in there, it's quite easy to manipulate them as well. So for example, if we go back to our earlier example here of Feralise, you can see this work is 2 minutes, 34 seconds in length. But, and I'm just going to right click on here, or I can go up to the plus button and go new extract. Again, we have training videos on all of this, which I will send through. It's really easy for you to non-destructively slice and dice content. So if you love using this particular work, but you know there's a fantastic cadence point or something that occurs in this point of the piece, you can create a little excerpt. So I'll just play that back. Okay, so I'm not sure, maybe you'd use that for an example of a pedal or something like that, but that was just a random guess of mine. But essentially you can name that, again you can tag it, so that you can use that in a custom question if you like later. Similarly, you have a whole lot of control over the way you can manipulate notation files. Once you can, so you can basically manipulate your notation files to play back only particular parts or create smaller sections or excerpts from within a larger excerpt as well. This gives you a lot of control over how you can manipulate your content. Okay, I've just sent a question here just in regard to progressions total random progressions. Yes, we do also include generated progressions. So in here, for example, if we jump back to chord progressions, if you choose to create your own custom level that doesn't draw upon fixed library questions, in here you can basically say, great, I need progressions in these keys of this length, and you can choose specific harmonic vocabulary. So if I just want chords 1, 4, 5, then I can select specific vocabulary and Auralia, and if you're in the harmonic analysis question topic in Musician, that would then create those questions there for you. All right. So as I mentioned, the library is also shared across Auralia and Musician, as are all the administration features. So if you import some notation into your library in Auralia, it will then also be available in Musician. So you can use it for different question sets there if you like. So yeah, there are many different levels of customization. It just depends entirely upon your needs. Okay, so I think we've covered all of those items, but essentially, if straight out of the box, students can get a lot of value out of the programs without you having to do anything, just by them exploring the practice area of the software. If you do have specific curriculum needs, then you certainly can control them in many ways by creating your own custom syllabus, integrating your own library content, importing your own library content, and so on. Okay, so now we're going to jump into the tests and worksheets area of the software. So these are essentially designed for you to deliver more specific questions and materials to your students. I'll jump into Cloud Edition for that. Okay, so basically in here under the tests area, you have a whole range of content that you can draw upon straight away. And a lot of these worksheets and assessments may be applicable straight away to many of your students. There is a bunch of AP Music content here that may be relevant if you're teaching at that level. A lot of that content may also be relevant for fundamentals in first year courses as well. So essentially in here, you have the option and the ability to select any of the provided tasks, and then you can assign them to your classes over on the right here. So normally we would have our other classes that we had set up under people listed here, so we can turn tasks on and off per class and have our students nicely grouped and receiving different content. You also have the option here of copying and editing one of our existing worksheets or tests. So for example, if we deemed that this worksheet was, had some valuable content, but you wanted to edit it a little, you can simply copy it here using the duplicate test button, and then just click on entries and you'll be able to edit that. You also have the ability to preview questions across, preview any of the worksheets by using the preview button here. So you can simply select your worksheet, hit preview, and that will just give you a view of exactly what that worksheet is going to look like. Now what we're going to do is create a worksheet from scratch, but I did just want you to make you aware that there are lots of existing worksheets and tests that you can draw upon straight away, assign to your classes, or simply copy and edit, and you're up and running. Okay, if you do choose to go from scratch, I'm just going to click on plus here to create my new test. So I'm going to create a Muse 101 test, and we'll just call this week 1. Week 1. Okay, so you can see that listed here. One little tip that may be of use to people, if you're working in larger institutions, it is useful to use this group field here. So I'm just going to put Wilson here so that I can group my relevant tests and worksheets under my surname so that students taking my course can more easily find the relevant tests for themselves. Okay, the next setting here is important. As we mentioned earlier, there's kind of various options across desktop and browser. So if I'd like to create a test or a worksheet that is available on both platforms, then obviously I select the desktop and browser option here. If you click on this little information button, you do get a list there of any of the available topics and library content that is available for the browser at this point. Okay, fantastic. Let me just do a quick. Okay, so I think I'm just having a quick look at the chat here. I think there are quite a few questions popping up in the Q&A. We'll get back to those if we can. My colleague will get back to you as quickly as possible, where possible. Otherwise, we'll certainly get back to you at the end of the webinar. Okay, so that's your desktop and browser option here. And then it's simply a matter of creating your entries. So in here, there are a number of different options for the types of content that you can add to your worksheet. Okay, so first of all, to add a new entry to my worksheet, I can just click on plus up here on the top right. And then I can choose my entry type. So I may just choose to pop something in here that says, welcome to the student. Okay, and then let's add another entry here. Again, just clicking plus. So Auralia allows me to choose, say, 3 questions, select my topic, just choose some interval recognition, 3 questions, I can assign the number of marks. I can also set the number of plays for the question, which is currently set at 3. And I've selected my topic here, and obviously I can select my level as well. And I can see the content at that level there. So those items have been added to my worksheet below there. I'm just going to add one more entry type here, and this time I'm going to draw from the library, which is a lot of those fixed questions that we referred to earlier. So in here I can select my questions, and all the library questions are available to you here. And again, the search function is really useful. As I mentioned, looking a few questions earlier. Oops, except I was in the other version of the software earlier. So normally if I had tagged something in here, I could simply search for my Muse 101 and any relevant content that I'd already tagged would appear there. Let's just really quickly do some search for some harmonic dictation. Whoops, once I learn how to spell and type. Okay, should be lots more appearing there. Just check. Okay, so I've just typed in chord progressions here. You can see we have lots of things from identifying different 6/4 progressions. And again, we can preview any questions here. To make sure they fit our curriculum needs before we add them to our test. So I'm just going to, again, just double click on that to add it to our worksheet. Now I'm just going to choose another couple of random things in here. I can choose some part dictation. Let's just pop in some 2-part dictation there again. And so I've added those 2 items to my worksheet. So in here, you can see our 2 items. Currently, we're only asking Auralia to choose 1 question out of this question pool. So this can be really useful if you're concerned with students cheating. So you can create a question pool that includes a bunch of high-quality questions, and Auralia will select, 1 or however many questions you like from there. If you change the question count to to match the number of questions, I will obviously get, both questions will obviously be delivered to my students, but I can choose for them to be delivered in a random order if need be. So again, that just adds another level of protection if you are concerned about students cheating. So obviously you can make those question pools as large as you like. Okay, so you can see here we now have a worksheet. We have a little welcome text. We have a interval recognition drill and a library drill, which I'll just put down as, let's put that down as harmony for the moment. And then I can simply exit there. There are a few other options here, time slots. So I can say, great, I just want this particular worksheet to be available for the next week. And you can set your date ranges there. You can also set a time limit on any tasks as well. I will mention that if you are integrating with your LMS, then most of these settings are less relevant. You'll probably set those options up within your LMS. Create a task in your LMS and then launch Auralia or Musician to connect that task. And then essentially what happens is when Auralia launches, you can either create a custom test as we just did there, or you can select one of the existing ones and you will have a little attach button that will appear up in this part of the screen. You simply click attach on that if you're connecting to an LMS task, and that will attach the Auralia or Musician task to your LMS task, which means students will then be able to launch it. I'll show you really quickly what that looks like in Canvas. So in here, for example, if I go to my assignments, I can see I have an intervals test here. So these will pop up looking very similar to this for students, and then they can just work their way through them, launch them directly from within your LMS. And of course, all the grades will flow back into the gradebook. And you can see our good friend Kenny G here has done quite well in the intervals test, which is surprising given his use of generally stepwise and scalic movement. Okay, so I hope that makes sense in regard to LMS integration. Again, we have a video that covers linking LMS tasks in great detail. So I won't step through that at this point in time. So for students, as far as accessing tasks, when they come into the software, they are taken to the home and the practice areas. They don't see any of these other goodies in the middle here. And there you can see our Muse 101 week 1 task. As a student, I can click on start and I'm led through the task. Welcome. I'm just going to randomly select some answers here. And I'll submit that. So we currently have feedback turned on for the questions on this assessment task. You can certainly disable that if you're running a more formal assessment as well. I'll show you that setting in a minute. I meant to show you that just before. And finally, excellent. And again, these results you can choose to show or hide these from students as well. So you have a lot of control over that. Okay, so I'll just jump back to tests. So as I mentioned in here, there are a bunch of settings that may be useful. That main one I just discussed was show feedback after each question. So that particular option is can obviously be disabled if you're running a more formal assessment. In that context, you may also like to disable this option, allow test to be resumed. So this will force the student to do the worksheet or test in a single sitting. If you do need to enable it, you can also set multiple attempts on a test. or a worksheet, and all those results can be saved separately as well. Now, one other quick tip for you just in regard to tests is just the option to disable tests and content that aren't relevant for your class. So I'll just jump back into Musician for this example. As I said, the administration functionality is identical across both programs. Okay, so you'll notice that when students, or when I went into the homepage before, I'm greeted with all sorts of content here that may not be relevant, and certainly some of this content will not be relevant for your students. So rather than having students overwhelmed with all of this content, you can quite easily control that. So under tests, here's a quick little tip just for disabling that content. So if I had a particular class listed here that I want to only show a certain selection of tests, before I get going, I can jump in here and I can disable all tests for the selected class. So, and then, so if I do that, I'll go yes. And then I can just turn back on the relevant tests for my class. So I'll just say, okay, great, chords, advanced, and I can switch that back on there. Similarly for courses, which I won't have time to get into right now. Essentially in here, I can apply the same functionality. Disable all courses for the selected class. Yes. And I'll just turn a particular course back on. So that will just, for students, that will just tidy up this home area, and rather than them seeing, you know, lots and lots of tests and things listed here, it will only show them the content that I have assigned. So keep that one in mind. That's a good one just for tidying that area up of the program. Obviously, again, if you're LMS connected and you're launching an LMS task, then that will just launch a single specific task. So students can't get distracted in that context. The single task will be launched, and then that will close, and the results will go back to the straight back to the gradebook there. Okay, now let's have a really quick look at the reporting side of things. Obviously, this is very important for you to keep an eye on how your students are progressing. As I mentioned before, if you're LMS connected and using tasks in there, all your results will go straight back to your gradebook. So you won't have to worry about that there. For anyone who's not LMS connected, then the reports can be easily accessed under this part of the software. There are a whole range of reports in here that we won't have time to go through, but a really useful one can be overall summary. If I just need to see how student Tim Wilson has gone this year, I can simply jump in here and I can see how students have gone across each of the topics. I can see how much time they've spent in each of the topics, and I can see their results and an overall result as well. I can also get a breakdown of each of the worksheets or tests that they have completed, and whether they have in fact completed it, which in this case the student hasn't. So lots of ways to kind of view that data. You can of course print it, save it to PDF, or also export the data as well if need be. In here, I also have the ability to look at specific test results. So I can go in and select test results, entry scores for a particular test if I like, or for all tests for a single student or for any of my classes. A bunch of useful options here. If students are allowed multiple attempts at a test or a worksheet, you can look at just their last result, their best result, combined results, a whole range of different things there. There is also a useful filter here that allows you to easily identify students that may need remedial work or those that need to be extended. So if you wanted to look at results for a particular class and just find all the students who are scoring above a certain threshold, you can get a list of just those students. Similarly, you can get a list of students who are scoring below a certain result there, and assign them additional remedial tasks. Now, I'm not sure if I have a, let me just see if I have any test results in here for Tim Wilson. Okay, so in here, yes, and these test results aren't that exciting for you to look at, unfortunately, but basically you do get a breakdown of each entry in the worksheet and my score. We do allow in the software now you to deliver manually assessed questions as well. So this just opens you up for a range of kind of free text questions. It might be anything from, you know, comment on the use of dynamics and articulation in the played excerpt, through to things that might involve, say, part writing, counterpoint writing, anything like that. You can deliver all those sorts of questions in the software and have them automatically, manually assessed under the grading area. So it just allows you to deliver a whole range of different questions, as well as creative tasks as well, where you may want the student to compose something, yeah, add on additional bars to, you know, a couple of pre-composed bars that you provide, and so on. Lots of different kind of creative options there for you. All right, that is the reporting area side of things. We're kind of starting to run out of time. As I mentioned, we will try and get back to you as quickly as we can with any kind of questions. If anything pops up in the meantime and you need to get in touch, Info at Rising Software is probably one of your best ports of call. As I mentioned earlier, our cloud support page, again, is essential for both students and instructors, as far as being able to access downloading the programs, through to technical support, through to resetting passwords and that side of things. Almost all of our training videos are available on our website as well, and so that will cover a lot of things from today. I will also email through a few links following up on this webinar. Our Facebook group also contains a bunch of useful information, and during these times where I know everyone is getting lots and lots of email, that Facebook group will be quite a hopefully useful resource for people to get more kind of immediate information, share ideas, questions, and also just you know, figure out best practice for using the programs, find out how other educators are also using the programs. So lots of ideas there, hopefully for you. Our YouTube channel also contains all of our training videos, so feel free to check that out. Relating to a lot of the things we discussed today that you may want to explore in more detail, from importing students through to creating LMS tasks, through to custom worksheets and exams. Okay, thank you all so much for attending. I'm just seeing a couple of quick messages here. We'll get back to you on a bunch of those. D2L is supported. We'll get back to you a bit more in regard to some of the other more specific questions. Please let me know if you have any questions. I know this is a crazy time for all, yeah, we'll see how it all plays out over the coming weeks, months, and I wish you all the best in health and negotiating these tricky times. So take care all, and we will hopefully chat to you again at some time in the future. Please let me know if you have any questions. See you later.